if I could take the liberty to go to item number 13 on the agenda, and I would like to let everyone know that for the peddler's permits, I did do a background investigation to make sure that the peddlers were not criminals or have a criminal background. Before we approve this is what's been done in the past. I just wanted to let the town know that that was taken care of, so when you vote for a yay or nay on the peddler's permits, you can feel confident that the people whose names are on the sheet were vetted.
What are they peddling?
What they usually do is like they'll go door to door and like maybe say we're looking for lawn services, or we want to cut your grass, or perhaps they're people will go door to door now and try to sell insurance, believe it or not. Insurance agents try to do that. So it's folks that are doing that.
Door to door.
Pardon?
Door to door.
Yeah. Salesman,
Soliciting,
yes.
whatever.
Door to door salesperson. And then in regards to the police report for this month, the only item that changed since I wrote what I wrote is that for the traffic grants for 2022, 3 of them have come up, for the one in January, one in February, one in March. However, because we're trying to bring our staff back up, we won't be participating in those grants because it would short us, and I don't want to do that. So just so that you're aware of that. And in regards to the community events and department activities, we had a really positive month last month, and each of you had a chance to look on page 2 of the report, and it lists the various activities that we were in for the month, and they were all in a very positive manner. And I am happy to report that the people in the community have general overall concerns related to our community that are on a positive aspect with the department. I'm very happy about that. We're moving along on the new hire that, of course, doesn't happen just in a day or two. So I'm hoping that by the end of January we'll have them on board. I was hoping that by the beginning of the year, but that didn't happen.
You did, everybody should have also received a memo from the chief on December 6th, because there was a question about squads.
No.
And I'll have to say, I thought for a while we were talking about adding for it. No, we're not talking about adding for it, we're talking about keeping it.
Replacing it for it.
Right.
That makes sense to me.
Replacing and hanging on to one or having for it.
Right. Right. So, this might be a good time if anybody had any questions on it, or if you wanna, if you wanna sit down and meet people, whatever you wanna do. But, it was dated December 6th.
Yeah.
I do have it somewhere.
You have to authorize this if you make his trade-in or to get a new vehicle then?
Well, yeah, agenda budget, the thing is before,
We said we were gonna revisit it before we bought it.
yeah, before you go ahead and, order one or whatever. I don't know what your timing is on that.
Unfortunately, in the entire United States, timing is a little difficult right now for brand new cars because of the computer chip issues, both in civilian models and in government police models. But we are aware of it, we can be proactive and go from there.
I'm just wondering about on the overall, are we in favor of the idea of what the chief is proposing? So it's like to get the best trade-in value you can acquire, I guess that's what it sounds like.
I guess the question was, and it's been my first time in budget meetings, and things seemed to go a little speedy, and all of a sudden it was, okay, here we are, we're at the end of it. I know this was brought up when we were approving it. I actually brought up the question about 4 squads. And the reason, and this is, we're discussing this is okay, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay. The reason I brought it up is I learned a lot. I learned a lot about a budget and how much money we spend. And I know that in some circumstances we don't have a choice. Like, so there's times where we have choices that I'm learning now that, and I know I read your your memorandum that you sent out and, you know, about vehicles and, about trying to get rid of them at lower miles instead of higher miles. I know that, you know, as you stated, Chief, that, or you said in your report here, it says, you know, officers spend a lot of time in there, they're driven differently than a civilian vehicle, and I can kind of understand that, but from my understanding with the little bit of discussion we had, at that meeting, typically we have 2 officers on duty. From what is that correct? Like normally there's 2 officers on duty at a time?
Would be the most.
When we have them all, we may have 2 officers on duty at a time, sometimes 3.
Sure. Well, that's,
the
how often
question.
is 3?
I would say, twice a month.
Twice a month.
Is it
Or if there's-
overlapping between shifts that we would have 3, or?
No, what I meant was, that's a good question, because you could have an override because of this reason. When we have enough people to work, I will have one person work 4 to 12, in other words, 4 o'clock to 12 midnight, and another person will work 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., so you get an overlap. And then the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. person would have a person working with them for 2 hours. Follow me? Okay.
So it's not normally with 3 people on all at one time, you know, typically 2 always, and sometimes a third.
Correct.
An overlap kind of thing.
And then in the summer, you have the water patrol that works on the weekends and various weekdays, and then they use one of those cars to go back and forth from the lake. Instead of us having them use their personal car, and paying 56 cents a mile to drive back and forth and have the liability of them driving their personal car.
Sure, that was another thing that was discussed also is,
Yes.
you know, a lot of times when, you know, so you were talking about, you know, training for officers, and if there had to have been 1 or 2 at the same time, they could take that vehicle and go to training. Well, for the amount of money we pay for a squad, and let it be known, I want everybody to have brand new stuff. It would be great, but as far as cost effective, you spend, I don't even know what the exact total was we had for a squad of somewhere around 50 some was a guesstimate. You can pay somebody mileage, you know, to use a personal vehicle. I know I use my own personal vehicle for all the training I do. I mean, and I think by the time you spend that kind of money for a vehicle, you pay insurance, it really is actually a little bit cheaper. And in my opinion, you know, I think that having 4 squads, and I know things are ran a little differently, but do we really need that 4th one? You know, was a question that we were all talking with each other, and in a way where we could save a little bit of money, and maybe that money could go towards, some of that money could go towards something else in the police department. Now, I don't do budget stuff, I don't know how that all operates, but if maybe it would be more beneficial for gear, or I don't know how we can spend that. If we sell a squad, you know, can that money be back into the police budget or something?
Yeah, it's in the budget, but I'm not quite sure what I'll give you here, is if, when you sell the old one, if that money just goes into the general fund. Or
Right, that's what I would.
that goes to there. But the second part was like when we hit the deer, how long were you out of commission with that one car?
It took us over a month.
Okay, and that's another factor, I know it's only part of it. So I guess what I'm hearing here is.
So we would
more
still be
discussion.
covered with 3, you know, like.
Oh, yeah,
one
you
was
do
out.
have the main.
But the third, I'm sorry.
Yep.
The
The
fourth
fourth
one.
car
Right.
is not equipped to do police duties.
Right.
No, it's-
And that's
That's
exactly,
the spare
That's where
car.
you can-
Right, that's the fourth car.
and that's not the one with that has 85,000 on it that you're looking to replace?
It is,
It is the one?
yes. It's the model, 2018 model year. That's the one.
And
that-
that's not equipped to do,
So it's not being used
it's not
every
equipped for a
day.
squad car to be like on road as a
No.
full-time squad, is what we're saying.
That's correct.
Well, when we talked about it originally in the budget, you said it was like $15,000 to equip it with, because I was asking if the old, you know, the old gear in the vehicle, if it can be put into the new vehicle, and you said that it's not compatible, so then it would have to all be replaced. So are we trying to make it into a squad and not just a runner vehicle? road where they,
Fourth,
then we'll have to purchase another radio. We only have 3 squad radios.
so is it, what gets you 15 grand when we were talking that one day? You said it was a guesstimate.
Okay, when you outfit a squad, I'll start from the front, work my way back.
Sure.
Okay, front of the card, you have the, I'll call it the boogie bar, okay? It's really not, that's not the technical term, but that's the large push bar in front of the car
Mhm.
that's on there and it has lights on it. You work your way toward the car. On the firewall, we have a special, there's some special equipment on the firewall related to police duties. I won't go into the specifics of what that is. You go into the car, you have the center console, and in the center console, you have the radio face, because in squads, the radio that you see in the center console is nothing more than it's like a little face, okay, and it clicks in, and it goes into a radio system, and I'll get to that part. Then you also have the buttons and the controllers that operate the emergency bar, the lights on the bar in the front and on the side. It also operates certain items in the squad that are required to be in the squad, such as the rack for the rifle, the lights for the prisoner area, so that when you're driving at night, you can have a light on and watch them, because you don't want someone to do something in the back that isn't healthy. And sometimes people do unusual things when they're in the back of the car. So behind the seats, all the way back up, you also have a printer for to print the tickets. That's on the headrest, that's on the passenger seat. Behind the driver and the passenger seat, you have the cage. The cage is what separates the prisoner compartment from the workspace. Behind there is the prisoner compartment, and that's a molded seat. And the reason it's molded is because when a person is handcuffed, the seats are molded in such a way so that their hands, you're handcuffed in the back, so that your hands don't get injured on your back or get pinched, so that you don't end up with damage to your nerves and your wrists, okay? And it's a molded seat because sometimes people will pee or defecate upon themselves or vomit, and then that gets onto the seat and you have to wash it out. In the past, there were regular seats, and those were real butter to get clean when someone messed themselves. Then behind the next area, behind the passenger seat, is another plexiglass area that separates the prisoner area from the back of the squad. And now you get into the back of the squad, and where I'll just call it like a compartment would be where you store your gear, there is a panel that lifts up, and underneath there is located all of the equipment that operates the radio and the brain box for the light bars. That's all in there. The things that I just explained to you are where that extra money comes in over and above the cost of the squad. And that also includes the labor to put it in.
Right, so.
And the 2018 car, unfortunately, when Ford changed over their squad models, the 2020 and above, anything from 2019, 18 and below does not work in the
It's not compatible for the.
It's not compatible.
So basically, if, let's just say we were to get a new force squad and we went that route, we're basically making it a usable squad.
No, because we're taking equipment out, we're taking the radio out of one of the squads, and we're going to put it in the new one, and then that other car won't have a radio. We don't have 4 radios, we only have 3 squad radios. We have portables, but those don't work as well as the squad radios.
Well, I guess my question and why I brought it up was if we normally have, you know, 2 officers on duty at one time, and my thinking is, why do we have 4, you know, so I kinda got your list of, you know, reasons why, and I can understand having a backup, but really, we kinda have a backup if we have 3, if the normal is two officers are on at one time, right?
Yep.
Like, just piggybacking on what the chief said, so we just had a car down, 20B was down for about a week and a half. When we are full staffing, we have 2. And if we were to be down that car, when we start working grants, or the supervisor has to come in for an incident, we could be down 0, if we do have a car that's down.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like Ford has been keeping them longer and longer when there's an issue. So if we have 2 working, and we have grants, and if we're down a car, which it seems like, I mean, how many times a year throughout we're down? Several
times it'll occur.
between the, you know, car deer accident we had 20 dealers just down for over a week with something with the engine that was an improper hookup when they sold it to us. I mean, they're used, and boat patrol too is a concern. If they're getting off the lake and there's an emergency somewhere along the way, and if they're available to respond, they can't in a personal car. I mean, that's a lot of liability, less things are rewritten.
Sure.
I mean, I'd rather see personally, not speaking for the chief, is we keep the 4 cars, but if you're trying to trim, then let's skip a year.
Well,
What happened about miles? Cause
that was my next, to bring something up, is, okay, so let's say we have 4, you know, 85,000 miles, I know, as I said, I know that they're used differently, like, let's get a new seat. That seat's like uncomfortable because you guys spend a lot of time in it. Can we do something like that to maybe push it back a year, maybe 2? Especially if it's a vehicle, and thinking is, that one basically is running to the boat launch. That's 3 miles from here, or, well,
It's not really
4.
a squad car.
You know what I'm saying? If it's not being used in that sense, I can't foresee right now, especially with everything we're spending on.
Yeah.
Could we hold back for now and bring this
We've
up
done
at the
that
time?
in the past, but.
Because we have
How many
3
times
newer
has that
squads,
happened?
right? Because of the deer accident, like, they're up kind of close.
Yeah,
So the more we can back that up, maybe we can get on a better rotation where they're not so close together as far as new models.
That's a good point that you brought up about close. Hang on a second. Because the reason that they're close now is because of car deer accidents.
Right, no, I know.
And then we ended up, they tore a lot of stuff.
Sure, no,
Then you do have to buy a new car, and that's why we have a 2018 and a 2020, a 2020 and a 2021.
right. No, I understand that. I'm
Worst
just,
comes to worst, if we need that 4th car that's not set up, we can transfer equipment from one that goes down for the meantime to use it. Any out of the area training or instructor training for EVOC we just had, we piled in there and went, you know, to WCTC instead of everybody using their personal vehicles. So I personally think it's good to have the 4 if we need to cut somewhere. Let's do it, maybe, you know, prolonging a purchase.
Yeah, like you wanna get to a point where we end up like what happened with like the deer accident. How long did it take us to get a squad that time?
It was like a month and a half, something.
Yeah. And then the other one, when we were trying to get the next year one, that one, they actually,
Delayed us
yeah, they said, no, our contract with you is not good anymore.
because we were a small department without a lot of cars.
You got bumped, basically.
We got bumped. Thank you, John.
Not to interrupt.
no, I
Oh,
like
that's a
that you
good
said
point
that
you
because
brought
that was my next, to bring it up, is if we kind of skip with our budget, maybe with this year with that particular vehicle, bring it up maybe in next year's budget, see how we're sitting there. I mean, you're saying even with cost, and a lot of it, I mean, cost is always one thing, but time being down, I'm understanding can be those couple weeks. But also, if you can spend, and I don't know what the equation is now, but it used to be, if you're spending $4 grand a year on a vehicle to keep it up, you're still money ahead than buying a new vehicle and the money you're gonna spend. You know what I'm saying?
There's a point somewhere.
There's a point somewhere where, and I'm sure that number has gone up just due to
Reliability.
vehicles, and
It's
now
not-
you have a line, you know, but I just wanted to try to separate it out, ask if we truly do need that.
Okay.
That fourth
Is it-
one, I mean,
Has that car ever been used for a police car?
18, oh yeah,
I'm just,
yes.
you know, temporarily switching equipment over and.
short of a radio, right, a permanent radio, it has everything else.
2018 was a car that we used a lot, that's why there's 90-some thousand miles on it. And then when we had the changeover, I'll call it a changeover, then that became the oldest car in the fleet. And then that's the car that's used for the boats and for training purposes. And another thing, God forbid we have some major incident, I don't wanna go on the 3 cars. We have some major incident and we need 4 cars. We're not gonna have the 4th car to go out there like, remember we had that incident on Memory Lane? Gosh, all of our cars were used. So that car was actually used as I'll call it a tech car. That's where all of our evidence went, was in that back of that car.
Tell you what,
And we can always visit this later.
yeah.
We don't know what between now and April's gonna be either.
Yeah, because the reason we have 2020, like you said, the 19 is the one with the deer smashed up, right?
Mhm.
So that's why you have it, but that's another reason to say that overall the fleet is newer than it would be in
Right.
1 year.
Sure. If that car wouldn't have been hit, we would have been, the conversation would be different.
Well, it probably would have been the same. Sorry, that's me.
No, I mean, we'd be talking about it,
Sure,
it'd be the
sure.
same, but it'd be different.
You know, I mean, I hope nothing happens. I always tell my kids, you can't live in what if, you gotta kinda take it by the bull by the horns and, you know, deal with situations as it is and deal with those other situations as they come, you know, I mean, that's.
Okay, here's what I wanna do, in next month's report, think about what we just did here and tell us what the repercussions would be if we skipped a year. Let us know what that would be like. Could it be done, you know, just like that. Okay, let's move.
If we skip a year, then perhaps Chad, Supervisor Whale's suggestion of getting other equipment, because it's less cost than a car, would be very beneficial too. Because there's some things that we would like to get that we don't because we're getting a car.
Yeah,
True, true. Okay,
it's some of that.
yep, understood. Okay, anything else? You good? You said that was the last thing, chief?
Yes, sir, that was it.
Okay.
And I did mention about the vetting of the persons, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, then I am finished, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay,